everyone, and welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the South Side. Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews. It is a Tomlin Tuesday as the Steelers, off a bye week and a 24-21 win against Minnesota, tried to get to 4-1. The Cleveland Browns, who lost in London last week, had to make the trip back 24-21 to that same Minnesota team that the Steelers beat. And so they are using a new quarterback, somebody we haven't seen before in the pros. That would be Dillon Gabriel, who made his rookie start last week and looked pretty good. Mike Tomlin will address that, the game, injuries, and everything else out of the Ireland game right now. Let's send it up to Coach T.
Good afternoon. Certainly was a good bye week for us on a lot of fronts. First and foremost, from a health standpoint, feel really encouraged about the return of some people who've been out. Guys like Alex Highsmith and Joey Porter Jr., for example, worked yesterday on our bonus day, and the arrows pointed up on their participation. But we'll follow them throughout the week to make sure it continues to move in the appropriate direction. I think the same thing could be said for Jaylen Warren. Obviously, he missed the last game, but looked really good yesterday. And so excited about those guys. Two guys that we're watching very closely that certainly are going to be limited at the front part of the week, but may perk up and be included toward the latter part of the week is Calvin Austin with his shoulder and Jalen Ramsey with his hamstring. Both have been highly aggressive from a rehabilitation standpoint during the bye week, and so really encouraged about the potential of those guys, but we'll take it certainly day to day. The bye week is also an opportunity for us to sit back and take a look at some of the things that we've done schematically, adaptations we've made to circumstance, whether it's matchup related or player availability related, to look at the overall trajectory of our units, offensively, defensively, and special teams relative to our vision. Also to look around and look at some of the things that are trending in the game, how people are producing or preventing big plays, whether it's run or pass, the turnover game, gadget plays, et cetera, possession down play, fourth down appetites. We looked at a lot of things going on globally, and I think oftentimes you do that. But I think that's one of the advantages of maybe having an early bye, just to get a sample size of how the ball is being rolled out globally in 2025 at the early stages of it. And we did some of that. It was a good experience for us, but it's also really good to get back into the world of competition this week. We had a really good bonus day yesterday, putting an emphasis on physical conditioning and running and playing football that way. As we get back and warm back up to it. And so excited about continuing that during the week. I'll talk briefly about Cleveland, some things going on with those guys. First on offense, obviously last week they went to Dillon Gabriel. This guy's a unique rookie. First of all, he's 25 years old, Hawaii native. He's a year older than Herbert, to put perspective on it. He's a 6-year college player. He threw for over 18,000 yards in college, 155 touchdowns, 32 interceptions in terms of a TD to interception ratio. And so I think that in-helmet perspective, you can't put a price tag on. He also threw for 10,000 plus yards in high school. And so he is a rookie, new to the National Football League, but this guy's thrown the football around a lot. He's older and more experienced than most rookies. I think timely processing is his superpower, and I think his experience and that superpower has been on display. And I think those are one of the central reasons why they went to him. He's able to function with fluidity in an effort to minimize negativity when passing. They play a lot through their running back and their running game anyway. And so we got a big challenge dealing with him and dealing with them this week. I mentioned their running game. I can't say enough about what I'm seeing from Judkins. This guy's played in 4 games. He started 3. He had absolutely no training camp to speak of, and that really highlights what it is that we're looking at. Kudos to him and kudos to them for what he and they are able to produce. He's a tough runner. He's good inside. He's got good patience and pick and vision on interior running. He finishes off his runs with violence. He's underrated in terms of his ability to bounce it to the perimeter and pop long ones. He had a 60-yarder or so. They got called back in London last week that kind of highlights that. I've seen this guy a lot. Obviously, we got a couple of his teammates from O-State, and so I've seen a lot of his video, man. He is a complete back. He's the type of guy that can wear a defensive unit down, certainly fits their mold. Is an awesome replacement, if you will, for Nick Chubb, and I think it's going to do nothing but get better with him and them. And when speaking about their run game, certainly offensively they got a lot of young people playing. I've mentioned Dillon and Judkins as rookies, but Isaiah Bond and Fanning are also rookies, and so they have a lot of young guys at the eligibles. But what they don't have is inexperience up front. There are three interior people, Teller, Pausick, Batonio, man. They've been doing it a long time, man. I think Batonio's got 166 starts. The other guys have around 90 apiece in the National Football League. They probably got 50 or so together, that collective. And I think that interior group up front really sets the pace for them. Down in and down out from a protection standpoint and running the ball, I don't think enough is written and said about that collective and how critical that collective is to their offensive output and stability. Got a lot of respect for those guys, man. We got a full day's work ahead of us trying to minimize their run game with that runner and those three interior people up front. In the passing game, certainly, as I mentioned, Gabriel's superpower is his process and his timely processing, and I think that's on display in his utilization of tight ends. Njoku's a guy that we've been dealing with for a long time, really talented, really good after the catch, can turn screens and checkdowns into big gains. He's got a highlight reel full of plays of dragging defenders and things of that nature under those circumstances. And Fanning is an oversized athlete. I think you box him in when you view him as a tight end. There's been some of those athletes in recent years. I think Brock Bauer reflects that in Vegas, for example. He's probably the prototype of the young guys in that mold, if you will. I think that's one of the reasons why we were really excited about acquiring Jonnu, is because I think he fits into that category. Those guys are unique athletes. They got really good run after and athleticism. They're matchup problems for linebackers. They're oftentimes too big and strong for secondary people. And I see all of that in Fanning's play. Saw a lot of his Bowling Green tape. He's a talented guy. They're doing an awesome job of utilizing him. And on the outside, with Judy and Bond, man, they got some guys with big-time athleticism capable of producing big plays. They're doing an awesome job of taking care of the football. They don't have anybody with ball security negligence in their group. Judkins was very good in terms of protecting the ball at O-State. As I mentioned, Dillon Gabriel's been really good through his college experiences in terms of protecting the ball. And so we got to be ready to win possession downs. They do an awesome job of staying in manageable possession downs, third and short, and things of that nature. They play behind their run game in that way. And so, man, we got a real challenging game ahead of us from that perspective. On the other side of the ball, they got great players. They got great schematics. They got an experienced coordinator in Jim Schwartz. I think, they're probably one of the top defenses in football. Statistically, it doesn't matter how you describe it or shape it. They're good against the run. They're good against the pass. They're good in situations, sudden change, tight red zone, et cetera. Obviously, if you're starting up front, and that's what you do, it starts with Myles Garrett. He's a game wrecker. We're highly familiar with him. But everyone in the division is. Yet and still, I think he had 2+ sacks versus Baltimore, 2+ sacks versus Cincinnati this year. And so we'll take our shot at working to minimize him. A component of that is staying out of one-dimensional passing circumstances. We better do a good job of that. Certainly, we're going to deploy all the schematics that most people do, trying to minimize a guy like him. We'll use tight end body position. We'll use chip help. We'll slide the line that way. But everybody does. This guy has 100 or so career sacks with people doing that, yet and still he still gets home. That's why he is who he is. And so, we have that to contend with. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other guys. The rest of the guys are doing great, man. Mason, the draft pick out of Michigan, is a plug-and-play type, is highly disruptive, and the rest of their group is as well. They do a nice job deploying schematics, man, as you work to do some of the things that people do to minimize miles. The other three guys work in tandem. They have awesome three-man games versus four linemen and things of that nature that really wreak havoc on pass protection. They got a strong secondary led by Denzel Ward and Delpit. Those guys been back there for a long time, man, and play smart. They do a great job of communicating. They're multiple, as I mentioned. Swartz has been around a long time, man. That guy does a great job of working to play to their strengths and to cover up potential weaknesses that all units have. You see that in his schematics. He's thoughtfully aggressive. You feel game planning. He caters his plan week to week based on the things that opponents do. He's capable of going big and 5 defensive linemen versus run games and so forth that he respects. Saw a lot of that versus Baltimore. He's multiple in terms of dime packages and so forth against teams that throw the ball around a lot. Saw that a lot against Cincinnati, for example. And so we got a lot of work in front of us. We got a long week. We're highly familiar with those guys, but they're highly familiar with us. And I just think that that's the fun and excitement of divisional play, that intimacy, those relationships. And certainly we have some new guys to us that need to establish themselves in the North, and they have some new guys that we need to familiarize ourselves with. And so looking forward to an action-packed game, and more importantly than that, we got a solid week of work in front of us in preparation. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, you had mentioned at the beginning about just looking what's going on around the league in terms of, you said, preventing big plays. What are you seeing in general? What are you seeing teams do against you in that regard?
Specifically us or globally?
But maybe you guys in particular.
You know, oftentimes big plays are self-inflicted wounds, and particularly some of the ones that we've given up. And it can occur from a myriad of things. Lack of cohesion due to newness, or lack of player availability and losing some communication skills because of those things, or it could just be failure. But oftentimes, when you see highlight reels of big plays, oftentimes it's defensive negligence, and certainly at times that's been the case with us.
What are you seeing from the opponent in terms of defending you guys? Trying to prevent big plays.
Oh, yeah, well, just identifying people that get down the field and utilizing schematics to minimize that, but that's nothing new. Everybody knows that DK Metcalf is a one-on-one challenge down the field, and so he doesn't get many one-on-one opportunities down the field. But that's, you know, we experienced that life with George Pickens as well. I think anytime you have somebody that's a down-the-field matchup issue, particularly when you competing against a coordinator as experienced and savvy as Jim Swartz, they're going to minimize those things first and foremost. And so I think a lot of big play prevention first and foremost is identifying those that produce them and then deploying schematics that make the ball go elsewhere.
In terms of communication and cohesion defensively, what does having Deshaun Elliott back do to help that secondary?
Well, he's been here and he's been in the National Football League, and the position that he plays is a hub of communication. And so we're happy to have him back, but you know, that's just a component of play. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention his playmaking as well. He's a good blitzer. Last week he had an interception and a sack fumble, and I think I'm more excited about having those tangible things back than some of the things that we're discussing.
Mike, does the play of Herb against Sawyer maybe shift the divisional labor a little bit, even if Alex is able to play this week?
That's something that we ponder once we see that Alex is available and to what degree he is in football shape. He's been out a number of weeks, and so there are a lot of variables to that discussion in terms of how we divide the labor up, and only time and a week's work will tell.
Mike, the Browns are allowing the fewest yards on the ground. They run a lot of one-high balls and stack the box a lot. What do you guys have to do after having your best run game yet this season when you guys were in Ireland?
Well, we better block them, you know. We better run hard. We better finish off runs. We better have a finisher's attitude in terms of which direction the power falls. As you mentioned, they're elite in terms of run stopping. And so what does that mean? That means that we got to be solid. We can't have unblocked people. But beyond that, we got to play well as a collective. We got to play physical, and we got to finish. And we got to understand that, you know, a successful day might be 3- and 4-yard runs at times, and we got to take what we can get sometimes from that regard.
How much of what you did and did well against Minnesota with the extra tight ends, heavier sets that you had is applicable moving forward, whether it's against Cleveland or anybody else, or was that just kind of a Minnesota-specific thing?
No, we have a certain personality, particularly when we play 4-3 teams. I haven't been bashful about that. That's why we drafted Darnell Washington. You can't play 4-3 teams with 250-pound tight ends. You can't. They're weight classes in combat sport for a reason. And so when the edge people are 300 pounds, you better have somebody out there that looks like that animal. And so that was our intentions in Minnesota. And so certainly as we move into divisional play in the next couple of weeks and we're playing 2 4-3 teams, chances are you're going to see more of that. It's unfair at times to ask guys like Pat Freiermuth and Connor to block 4-3 ends. That's not real realistic if you want to have a real good run game day.
Mike, that's what I was just going to ask you, would that help explain why Pat has played so few snaps, actually through these first 4 games?
Well, I'm not talking about the totality of 4 games, but certainly last week, the matchup component has a lot to do with how we distribute snaps at that position. When you're looking at 4-3 units, as I mentioned, you better have some big people in that C and D gap area.
But we're still talking about tight ends. You mentioned Harold Fanning. We're seeing kind of a reinvention of the tight end at college, now trickle into the NFL. How much do you think that's still untapped at the league?
I don't know that it's new, to be quite honest with you. There have been a bunch of dynamic tight ends, it seems like, over the years in college ball, and it usually translates guys that display big-time run after, guys that are tough matchup problems for linebackers and oftentimes too athletic for DBs. In general, over the last 10 years or so, those are the tight ends that go in round 1, those unique animals. And the good players generally go in like round 3. And so that's just my perspective on it. I think the only reason he sat on the board as long as he did because he was a MAC player. But when matched up against Power 5 opponents, I think maybe it was Texas A&M or somebody I saw last year, he was not out of place by any stretch. He's a big-time player.
Mike, who do you look at it as options if Calvin can't go?
It's not necessarily about pulling from people that aren't here. It's about the elevational roles of guys like Roman Wilson and Scotty Miller, for example. And so I'm excited about watching those guys work and maybe get some elevated participation. I think that's one of the beautiful things of the journey that is a season. You're going to get faced with some challenges as a collective. One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. Case in point, Jalen Warren wasn't able to go in Dublin, and I think a lot of people had an opportunity to appreciate Kenny Gainwell, something that we already appreciated, something that we've been watching day to day during the course of team development. And so hopefully a week from now, if Calvin is unavailable, we're saying the same things about some others.
Mike Roman hasn't been utilized much, if at all, the first month or so. Is that more about the guys ahead of him than anything he may or may not be?
Or it might just be our selection of personnel groups. We've been talking a lot about multiple tight ends. Spencer Anderson reporting as eligible, the utilization of multiple tight end groups. And so his lack of participation might not mean anything relative to his performance or either what's going on at his position. It might just mean how we choose to deploy our personnel groups through the first month of the season. And so it's still very early in this process. We got 13 straight games ahead of us, so keep watching.
Mike, what kind of challenge is it, or is it even a challenge to kind of recapture some of the momentum that you guys had before the bye in Ireland and to translate it?
I'm not worried about momentum. I'm just worried about getting better. I think that's the spirit in which we should move. At the early stages of the year, it's about getting better week in and week out. Momentum is secondary.
Speaking of getting better week in, week out, I know you don't want to look too far ahead, but do you take...
As we start to look ahead, go ahead.
Look ahead. Preparation-wise this week, knowing you have 2 divisional games in 5 days over the course of the next 2 weeks, how do you kind of take that into consideration, preparation?
I'm just locked in on this week.
You guys are starting on your own 35, which is one of the best in the league, and you guys are also converting a lot of red zone trips into touchdowns. What is the next step for you guys to get into the red zone more often?
Keep playing, keep getting better. As I mentioned, it was like the momentum question. At this stage of the game, man, it's about getting better. It's about continuing to find rhythm in terms of how we divide the labor up, what schematics work for us, how we can function with efficiency in all 3 phases.
Well, you talked about giving help for Miles Garrett, but what do you do from a coaching perspective with Broderick Jones? Maybe just sort of mentally, do you challenge him? How do you talk to a guy facing that matchup the first time?
I don't know that it requires conversation. I think Broderick is not a dummy. He realizes who he's competing against this week, and he's a competitor and a professional. And so I hadn't spent any time thinking about how I'm going to talk to or motivate Broderick this week.
Mike, well, you guys use a lot of tight end, so do the Browns. They run a lot of 12 personnel. How do you guys counter that with the way they use Njoku and the way they try to mix up their game? And does you guys using 12 personnel a lot help your defense in preparation?
I think oftentimes, unit personalities are formulated through competition against your team. And so certainly we deploy a lot of multiple tight end personnel groups, and so we have experience defensively in terms of being diverse, in terms of some of the things that we can do to attack that personnel group. But I'm sure that they've seen a lot of it because, as you mentioned, they use a lot of tight end groups as well. Largely, though, I just think that general discussion falls more into the category that these divisional relationships are intimate. We know them, they know us, and so it's game on.
When you got Kenny Gainwell, was part of the thinking to get another back in here that had replicable skill sets to what Jalen provides so that in the case of injury, you guys can do a lot of the same things?
No, we just thought he was a good player that was kind of underutilized within the system that he was in because Saquon was just so talented. We played against him a year ago, and he made some critical plays against us in the running game, in the passing game. He covered kicks. I think he had 8 tackles last year for Philadelphia on kickoff. He returns kicks. And so we just looked at a player that had a versatile skill set in a lot of areas and that we thought was capable of more than what we were looking at on tape due to circumstance.
Mike, how different is it, or what challenges, I guess, does it maybe present to try to prepare for a rookie quarterback who maybe doesn't have a whole lot of film out there?
I don't necessarily view it as a challenge. I just think we're faced with these type processes every week. Sometimes you have a large body of work to study, sometimes you don't. Particularly early stages of the season, you don't have a large body of work to look at anyway. And so we've kind of been in that mode through the month of September. And so it doesn't feel irregular to look at preseason snaps in an effort to gain a larger body of work in terms of getting a feel for his skill set. And so, I imagine if it was later in the year, it would feel a little different. But we've been kind of in that mode. Everyone's been in that mode as you push through September. It's just not a lot of tape to look at relative to 2025 for anyone.
I know they just switched to Gabriel, but you mentioned a couple weeks ago last year maybe not wanting Flacco to get in the game. Is that something that's on your mind again this time around?
I mentioned that last year, a few weeks ago, specifically because of the dramatic difference between Flacco's skill set and Richardson's skill set. I don't know that they're doing things dramatically different in Cleveland, whether it's, Dylan in there or Joe. And so it might be less significant this week than it was when I cited that example.
Talking about how much you played Spencer Anderson, it's one thing to say, hey, maybe 6 offensive linemen is a good idea. It's another to have 6 offensive linemen that you want to get in the game. What has he done to earn that opportunity and get what? Not every 6th offensive lineman someone the head coach wants to put out there.
He's a capable guy. He's played some starting football for us in the past. He's a versatile athlete. I think he was a former high school tight end at one point in his life. If you give him a minute, he'll tell you about his AAU basketball resume. And so, I don't want to make more out of it than what it is, to be quite honest with you. He's the man that's up in that regard.
Knowing that it is a small sample size, when you looked back at what you've seen from your offense through the first 4 weeks, what was your biggest takeaway in terms of areas you want to see them improve?
All areas, to be quite honest with you. That's the nature of this thing, particularly when you have a young front, individually and collectively. I just think the only way that you get better and gain experience is through playing. And so we've had some good moments. We've had some moments that aren't good. We got to keep pushing, and we better win along the way. That's my general mindset or tenor regarding the subject.
Mike, what did you see that you liked about Caleb Johnson, and was it important to him to have him kind of get back immersed in the offense against me?
I think that he's going to continue to get better with opportunity. He doesn't have control over when those opportunities occur. And so when he gets them, he better make the best of them. I love the way that he's working during the course of the work week from a practice perspective. And so, as I mentioned, we got 13 straight games ahead of us. I'm sure he's going to get more opportunities to let his talent show and, more importantly, to develop talent and experience. He's a third-year junior. I don't view that as a negative. I love to be a part of people's growth and development. But at the same time, I don't get amnesia. I don't like that in the spring and then hate that in the fall. And so as a leader, man, I embrace the get better component of his profile. And sometimes that's going to require work. Sometimes it's not always going to be pleasant moments. But that's what they pay me for.
What do you guys do better against the run against Minnesota? And with the way the Browns, they run into a lot of stack boxes, they're not afraid to run even with teams below the line. What do you guys have to continue to do better against them?
Just the collective growth that I've been talking about a lot, but also you'd be remiss if you didn't talk about the presence of Deshaun Elliott being a major component. I thought his presence was significant in that game last week, being a down safety, a guy that plays in and around the line of scrimmage.
Mike, what have you learned about your secondary in the last few weeks because of the injuries? And with Joey coming back, does everybody kind of slide into those roles from game one?
I mentioned early in team development that I liked our depth, particularly at the cornerback position. Well, certainly that depth has been tested. Talked a lot about BE and how excited we are to have him. He's done a nice job. James Pierre has done a nice job in playing more as well. It's good to have veteran backups, man, guys that have played in the National Football League and started some of that. And certainly those things have been tested. And to have a full complement of players is not something that I view as a problem. We'll go through the week. We'll keep pushing in terms of evaluating people's availability and levels of conditioning. And then we'll kind of divide the labor up appropriately so based on that information at the end of the week.
Eccles hasn't played a lot in the slot before.
I'm sorry?
Eccles hadn't played a lot in the slot before you got him. Was that something you kind of always thought he would be able to do, or maybe you learned about him through the process?
He played some in New York in the slot. As a matter of fact, I think he played over 100 snaps or so inside for the Jets.
DK's had 3 really big home run after catch plays, 2 against New York and then the one in Ireland. And they're all 3 pretty astute moments of recognition from Aaron. We motioned somebody away, lots of space in the deep end, and he took it 81 yards for a touchdown. How much can Aaron highlight that for DK kind of in the moment at the line of scrimmage when he sees something available for him?
Boy, you're reaching there. Aaron's an experienced quarterback, man. He makes good and timely decisions. When you get the ball to big people with top-end speed, that's what happens. When you do it on time. And his ability to operate on time creates run-after opportunities, not only for DK, but for everyone. And certainly DK has a skill set that's capable of producing the plays that you mentioned.
Anyone else?
What do you love most about the environment of a home AFC North game?
I just love being in big-time competition. I'm a competition junkie. And I just think the divisional component of how our schedules are aligned these days in today's game, the intimacy specifically of the AFC North, the stability within the programs, man. Kevin's been in Cleveland for a number of years. I've known Jim Schwartz for a long time. I think that intimacy, that knowledge creates competition. I think the geographic proximity creates a cool environment. There's a lot to be excited about relative to this game this weekend and AFC North football.
When you had to face a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's so good at the line of scrimmage in the past, what are you seeing now that he's your quarterback? How are defenses, how do they react to this guy because they know what he's like at the line of scrimmage?
Sometimes the things that you do have nothing to do with who you're competing against. Your ability to disguise and time blitzes and things of that nature oftentimes depends on the collective experience of your group. And so I think generally that's where defensive architects start. And certainly Jim Schwartz has the players and the experience within his group to play that cat and mouse game with Aaron, with guys like Denzel Ward and Delpit back there and Newsome that have been back there for a long time. They have the collective experience to hold disguises, to get in and out of calls, and to do the things to match wits with a guy like Aaron. But I think first and foremost, it starts with with yourselves. And that's why I mentioned the experience, the collective experience that they have.
Like with these division games coming up, obviously all three other teams lost this weekend. How do you feel about where you guys sit in the division right now?
I don't care what happened with other people, particularly last weekend. It's about us coming off the bye and getting ready for our game this week. I'm not a big picture guy.
Anyone else? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that's head coach Mike Tomlin as the Steelers get ready for the Cleveland Browns. Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews back with you. And in case you missed at the beginning, he went over all the injuries, and there's some good news for a change here. Missy.
Yeah, it sounds like good news for Alex Highsmith. He was dealing with that ankle injury. Joey Porter Jr. with the hamstring. Arrow pointed up for those guys. They're going to watch them throughout the week, but it sounds like they should be good to go. Same with Jalen Warren, who obviously did not play in Dublin. A little bit of a surprise, but that was an injury he was dealing with. But then with Jalen Ramsey and Calvin Austin, they're going to be limited starting tomorrow, and we'll kind of have to see how the rest of the week goes, if they'll be able to go on Sunday, and then short week heading to Cincinnati for a Thursday night football game.
Well, even without Jalen Warren, boy, the run game was at its best in that Minnesota game. They came out 4.8 yards per carry. Gainwell really cherished the opportunity and showed that, but the offensive line probably had its best game.
Absolutely, and I think, Coach talked a lot throughout the press conference about, using Darnell Washington not just to help the run game. We saw it on the tush push that was successful with them, using Connor Hayward and also Spencer Anderson, Mr. Eligible.
How about that?
Getting a chance to, it felt like the Zach Banner days where that was just a normal thing and that's what he was known for, but it was something that worked and they kept going at it, and when the Vikings weren't able to stop it, that's a good sign. And as you said, for Kenneth Gainwell to get that chance to take advantage of it, almost had 100 yards rushing. Yeah. A very good day all around.
Yeah, Spencer Anderson was one of the most famous people in Ireland after that game. They called his name almost every play. Tackle eligible, taking the role away, as you said, from Zach Banner. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about the game coming up, and we'll take a look back at that win in Ireland, which was a big one against the team last year that won 14 games. All that and more as we continue on this Tomlin Tuesday, right here live on KDK Plus and all your Steeler digital platforms.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Well, I mean, there's been so much talk about how can we get DK more involved, how can we push the ball down the field more, and I said last week you got to run the football, and I think today we ran the ball pretty effectively. I thought Kenny Gainwell, obviously if you're a football fan, you know who he is, and he followed his career, and it seemed like every time he went in the game, for me as a football fan, with Philly, it was like, man, this guy's really good. He should get more touches. So when I came here, I knew what kind of player he was. And I tell him all the time, he's an absolute baller. So any opportunity he gets, man, Kenny's been great all year and making himself a lot of money.
Aaron, I broke the record today for most passes in the history of 50 plus yards. 91 they said. Now we're going past Drew Brees. What does that mean to you back in your career, but still getting accolades? What's the passing game got going today? Yeah, it's the twilight of my career. I wouldn't say back in. I used to say 5, 6, 7 years ago I was on the back nine, but I'm teeing off on 18 right now. By the way, what happened to the Ryder Cup? Europe's smashing them still? Yeah. That's too bad.
Aaron, another record that you come away with is the longest Twitter Classic in Park history. Would you talk about the history of today, just the emotion and the atmosphere?
I thought the atmosphere was outstanding. I mean, I came out real early, and in most NFL stadiums, there's like a 2 hours when the stadium opens, and it starts to trickle in. But somebody came back in the locker room at like 11 and goes, man, there's a ton of people out there already. I was like, well, we're not in the States anymore, This is a different type of fan, so I loved it. I thought the crowd was fantastic.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh, my TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked up. What a catch! Wow! Gets
see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
No, we just thought he was a good player that was kind of underutilized within the system that he was in because Saquon was just so talented. We played against him a year ago, and he made some critical plays against us in the running game and the passing game. He covered kicks. I think he had 8 tackles last year for Philadelphia on kickoff. He returns kicks. And so we just looked at a player that had a versatile skill set in a lot of areas and that we thought was capable of more than what we were looking at on tape due to circumstance.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about Kenny Gainwell, who got the start last week and made the most of it. Almost, as Missy said, 100 yards. I think he fell 1 yard short of that.
99.
But yeah, got in the end zone a couple of times. And, you know, even without Jaylen Warren, the Steelers decided that was their best mode of attack against the Minnesota defense by bringing in extra people to help on the offensive line, and it worked. And I guess now the question is, did they do that more often than not? And if so, what does it mean for Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, whose snaps were down in this game?
Yeah, I don't think it's something you want to do all the time. Obviously, I think they put it on tape. And as we know in the NFL, everybody watches everything, can see everything, and knows what you're doing. But I do think Kenny Gainwell is a guy that we did see involved in this offense heading into that game, especially in the passing game. You know, I think he's one of those reliable guys that's always in the right place. Aaron Rodgers can check it down to him or wherever he needs to go. This was his time to shine, though, getting this type of opportunity. And, you know, as you said, you can just tell by the offensive linemen, their body language, their expressions. When you can get the run game going and have over 100 yards total for the entire team, it's definitely something you want to continue to do until they can prove that they can stop it. But then, you know, on the other side, it also helps in terms of the passing game. And we saw, you know, another DK Metcalf, you know, crazy thing happen. And I don't think anybody was shocked that he turned that into a touchdown.
He is one of the NFL leaders in yak yards. And of course, that takes a perfect pass to make it possible. And you like one play, 80-yard drives taking 12 seconds. Yeah. What took him so long to get the end zone? 12 seconds? He's faster than that. But that play was all the result of a pinpoint accuracy. You've seen quarterbacks try to make this throw, but if it's behind him or underneath, he has to stop and start. He was in motion the whole time, and I think when he gets going, watch out.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, credit to Calvin Austin. I know Ben Skronik wasn't far behind either. What they were able to do to create that lane along the Steelers sideline for that. But it was great to see. You're seeing the chemistry that we've seen DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers start to build in Latrobe and continue that play out on the field, as you said. And, yeah, I'm never not amazed by things that he does and just how fast he is. And I don't know if he was faster or Peyton Wilson when he stopped that touchdown, but I know they both were in the 20s and they were pretty close.
Peyton Wilson, it's funny you bring that up because that's another indication of what a pass a little bit behind a guy can do, because Jordan Addison was open, wide open,
very open.
Clearly a blown coverage of some sort, but he had to kind of stop and then restart. And Peyton Wilson got the angle on him. And if that pass is leading him, there's no way anyone catches him.
No, absolutely. And the amount of time that it took away, not letting them score right away. You didn't want them to score at all, but they did. And that really played a factor into it. I know Terrell Austin, the Steelers defensive coordinator, spoke last week before the team went on their bye week just about what a big play that was and how much he saved the team from, as you said, miscommunication and a call gone bad.
So when we come back, we have a lot more to talk about here. We're going to get into the defense and the work it did against Minnesota's offense, and also look ahead to the Cleveland Browns, who will come in here after a loss to the same Viking team the Steelers beat the week before. That's all coming up as we continue here live from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the South Side. It's a Tomlin Tuesday, and we're back in a flash.
Fans are here. Give them something to cheer about to them.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked off. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
Yeah, it's like we talk about each and every week. It's fun to get teams one-dimensional. Obviously, that's us doing our job. That's the offense doing their job. Special teams had some great plays too, and it's a whole lot of fun, man. Steel Nation came out today and really showed out. Really happy about that and happy about the win.
DJ, any meaning behind the celebration of putting the ball in the stands after the interception?
I was just trying to get it to the stands. The stands are so far away. I knew if I threw it, I'd probably hurt my shoulder. So I was just trying to get the fans involved as much as possible, and they were incredible all day.
TJ, we heard something happened to your teammate Skyler while he was here, Skyler Thompson. Is he doing okay? And have you heard anything about that?
I don't have enough to comment on that.
So raise your hand if you need some. Go ahead, up front here.
Yes, and we will probably be drinking many more here shortly. It was incredible, and hats off to the Rooney family for establishing this culture here and having this fan base follow us the way that they do. I think you have to acknowledge the Rooney family first and foremost, and the fans were absolutely incredible today, and I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. They're everywhere, and they're incredible, and it was a fun atmosphere today.
Were they max protected from what, and how were you guys able to get the pressure that you got?
Yes. Yes, very much so, and that's why it's just trying to find any way to get to the quarterback, trying to impact the game as much as possible. I thought Herbig had a hell of a game on the other side. I thought Keanu had a hell of a game inside. Obviously, Cam pushing the pocket inside. I think it really doesn't matter who eats.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
All right, welcome back. We continue here on a Tomlin Tuesday. Bob and Missy with you, and we're talking about the Steelers' defense, which really played a physical game against Minnesota, and the fact that Carson Wentz was in there, veteran guy, and you had to wonder, how he would do in that situation because he knows how to win. He's been around. He was a candidate for an MVP one year in Philadelphia, but the Steelers got to him 6 sacks and I think 14 quarterback hits, and that takes a toll on a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he stayed over there. They went to London and faced the Browns defense. So probably not the best international trip that Carson has ever experienced. I'm sure.
But he did engineer that winning drive at the end for 80 yards against that.
That was, yes, I'll give him credit for that. But in terms of being hit, an astronomical amount of times between the two games. But I think the Steelers defense is really building on something that we started to see, especially in New England. They carried it over to that game against the Vikings. And I think they're just menaces in terms of being able to get into a quarterback's face, making them adjust what they want to do, their timing, getting hands up. We've seen just Cam Hayward tipping balls that lead to interceptions. It's almost a routine thing every game. But I think it's a good problem that Alex Highsmith sounds like he'll be back. And we've been seeing Nick Herbig taking advantage of that opportunity and playing lights out alongside TJ Watt.
Yeah, Nick Herbig, I wonder how they're going to deploy some of these snaps here because he's been playing at a very high level.
Oh, yeah.
The more he's in there this year, it seems the better he gets. So that's kind of nice luxury to have. You have 3 guys, and not even counting Jack Sawyer, who's a guy who can do that as well.
Absolutely, and I think, Derek Carman is getting more comfortable. Obviously, he missed some time with that knee injury from the last preseason game, so it's starting to come to fruition. It feels like we have not been home in forever. It was only one game, but it will be good to be back at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday, an AFC North matchup. As Coach says, it's always hot in the kitchen, and these are two teams that know each other well, and at least we're not waiting till week 11 to play somebody from our division this year.
No, I think that's a good thing, and right now the good thing is the Steelers in the standings in the AFC North. 3-1 with a healthy lead here on Cincinnati, which started 2-0. Now they've dropped 3 in a row, and they look like they're really desperate for some change at quarterback. I don't know what they can do. And then you have the Browns and the Ravens both at 1-4. So these are difficult to come out of those kinds of holes, no matter how talented you are. When you dig that kind of a 3-game deficit, that's hard.
Yeah, and I think, especially as we're getting into more and more divisional play, these games will mean a lot more. Hopefully, the Bengals don't make a quarterback change until after next Thursday, because that would be good for the Steelers looking to get a win on a Thursday night on the road, I think the first time since 2016. So It will be interesting to say the least what they're able to do hopefully over these next 2 weeks to really, continue to stockpile those wins, because it does not feel like we're in the middle of the season, even though they had the bye week, because it was only those 4 games, and it's just going to get tougher as we go down the road.
And Cleveland's starting a rookie quarterback, although he's been around, as Mike Tomlin talked about, 63 starts in 6 years. He's an older rookie. However, you can tell that he's poised in that regard. So if you're the Steelers, how do you attack this kid? Because I would imagine pressure is the one thing, especially with a young player. If you get to him a few times, boy, it can change the direction of the game in terms of a takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about, how do you deploy those outside linebackers? Obviously, he's a left-handed quarterback, so things will be a little bit different in terms of that. But I do think it's make him uncomfortable. We used to have the Dick LeBeau stat, the Steelers defense versus rookie quarterbacks, and it was never good for rookie quarterbacks what they were able to do in terms of the confusion. And I think especially playing at home, that aids the Steelers defense as they've gotten better at being able to communicate. I am interested to see if Jalen Ramsey is able to go or not, because he plays such a big role in that defense and being able to play multiple positions. But as Coach said during his press conference, getting Deshaun Elliott back last week, 2 weeks ago it feels like now, in Dublin against the Vikings was huge, because he's one of those guys that has been in this system, knows where everybody should be, and as Patrick Queen joked but was pretty much serious yesterday, he has a very loud mouth, so he's good at helping people communicate.
We saw their quarterback, who is a rookie. You also have a lot of other rookies. Cleveland's using quite a few. We'll talk about some of them and their impact on their early part of this season coming up. When we continue, we're live once again up until 1 o'clock right here on KDK Plus and Steelers digital platforms. We'll be right back.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
For our team and our organization, I think it's a big, I think me and Mike T are the only ones that really had a relationship with Mr. Rooney. I think for us, it's a big thank you. He's responsible for bringing us both in, to follow the chief and see what he built on top of that. I was telling players it was uncommon for an owner to shake every man's hand and look them in their eyes and ask about their family and ask about what's going on day in and day out. Training camp, practice, games. And I could tell Art Rooney was very excited about this game. He was carrying around his hurling stick, and he was explaining that sacred ground we got to play on and the importance of this game to the family. And I think that resonated with a lot of our players. But Mr. Rooney, I think we were all just very thankful to have this game here. I know before they even announced it, it was like, do we go here? Do we go Mexico? And I just felt like, man, if we got a chance to play in Dublin, we would. This is a game we always circled on our calendar, and I'm glad we got the win overseas. We've had our fair share of debacles in the past, but very thankful to get the win here.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about to them.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked off. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
can't say enough about what I'm seeing from Judkins. You know, this guy's played in 4 games. He started 3. He had absolutely no training camp to speak of, and that really highlights what it is that we're looking at. Kudos to him and kudos to them for what he and they are able to produce. He's a tough runner. He's good inside. He's got good patience and pick and vision on interior running.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about Mr. Judkins. That's going to be coming out in the future the way he's running right now, because another rookie, you're talking about Dylan Gabriel, but this is a first-year player who Mike Tomlin said didn't even have a training camp, and here he is, put up 110 last week against Minnesota. He is a hard runner, and you knew that if you watched him at Ohio State for sure.
He's definitely an AFC North type player. Like you said, the way that he runs, 110, I believe, against the Vikings in that game in London, and literally virtually no training camp or, you know, getting a chance to condition and get ready for it. And you just see how fast he is, how big he is. And it is something the Steelers had some issues with earlier in the season of being able to stop the run, and something that they will have to work with for this team. I think especially, you know, with a rookie quarterback, if you can stop the run, make Dylan Gabriel pass the ball, things usually work out in their favor in terms of getting turnovers and getting the ball back to the Steelers offense.
They have another rookie that they're using at tight end to complement David Njoku. That would be Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. And, you know, obviously when you're watching their team, you say, who is that now? There's another guy, and a rookie making an impact at tight end. So they're relying, Kevin Stefanski, on a lot of guys, even on the defensive side of it. So Fannin is a guy who has really embraced his opportunity. He's a big part of what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I had read a stat, I don't remember exactly how many, but the Browns had the most rookie players playing throughout the entire league in terms of, you know, the injuries and different things that they dealt with. Obviously, the quarterback change helped that as well.
Yeah, and as far as defense, don't forget about Devin Bush. He's back there, and he's their second leading tackler, Missy, and he's come a long way. The injury here in Pittsburgh seemed to rock his career. Went to Seattle, didn't do all that much, but now all of a sudden he's here in Cleveland. He's making an impact on that.
Yeah, you know, they saw him at least in one of the games last year. I think he was injured for the other, but definitely one of those guys that, you know, remembers where he came from, also understands the AFC North rivalry, and usually has something to say.
And one of the interesting matchups in this game will be Aaron Rodgers and his years of experience versus Jim Schwartz, who used to be a head coach, against him. You know, those little things make a big difference, and Aaron Rodgers can manipulate things with his cadence, with the way he looks at things. He can either go quick or run a snap count all the way down. So I think those are the little games within the game.
Yeah, the little cat and mouse game. And I think it is, you know, the interesting thing about Aaron Rodgers. He has seen so many things. He's gone against so many coaches throughout the league, whether it's with their current team or a previous stop for them. You know, even that game in Green Bay a few years ago with the Steelers where Coach Tomlin called a timeout before Aaron Rodgers could get the snap off because he knew they had too many guys on the field, and they kind of looked at each other.
Yeah.
That is what I anticipated being against the Browns when it comes to Jim Schwartz, as you said, on Sunday.
All right, that's the matchup. That'll take place at Acrisure Stadium, 1 p.m. on KDKA. We look forward to seeing you then. And we have 2 hours of postgame that follows. When we come back, we're going to sort of recap what Mike Tomlin said for those of you who just joined us about the injuries and everything else concerning this matchup. It's next when we continue live right here on the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex.
Fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
And it's kicked off. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
What was this like out there? The atmosphere, the crowd, and everything?
We got the best fans in the nation, obviously. I feel like it was a home game, per usual. They always travel with us. Man, I mean, ain't much else to say, bro. It was a great fan collection of fans coming to watch us play. I think it helped us definitely at the end. We got to learn how to finish. We can't have busted plays like that at the end. We had them, 14-6 at halftime. They could be about 15 points in the second half. That's not safe with football. All we can do is get better, communicate better, but we'll be all right. I think we're going into the right direction. We just got to keep stacking those days.
Did it mean a little bit more to get this win for the Rooney family? I know you guys talked about it all week.
Yeah, obviously, rest in peace, DMR. Coach T had a meeting night before the game, told us about who he was as a man, how great he was, and there's a lot of things I didn't know about him. So it was really cool to experience Coach T's emotions and how he felt about Mr. Rooney. So I appreciate him for sharing it with us. I appreciate the Rooney family for bringing us out here. It was a great opportunity. So it was really cool.
Your first game back, how'd you feel out there? Did you get right into it? I mean, obviously with the interception too.
I'm a ball player, bro. Like, it don't matter. Like, honestly, I'm just blessed to be able to keep playing ball. And after the injury, I didn't know how bad it was going to be. So I'm extremely blessed and happy that I was able to play out there today. And I gave them all like I always do. And I was rewarded with some plays. So
This defense seemed a little more aggressive out there. I know you got to. I mean, you had 6 sacks up into the fourth quarter, and then you had them pretty much rattled there.
When we're playing our brand of football, playing Pittsburgh football, then we're going to win a lot of games. We got to be aggressive and keep doing what we're supposed to do.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Steelers are 3-1, looking to go 4-1, and history tells you that should be accomplished based on how they fare under the bye week. They do pretty well statistically, don't they, Missy?
Yeah, under Coach Tomlin, they're 14-4 post bye week. This one a little earlier, but maybe it's a good thing you're getting some guys back, especially on that defense. But 6-1 at home, so hopefully that continues. And I think it's a 20-plus year streak of Cleveland not winning in Pittsburgh. So a lot of streaks we got to continue with this second home game coming up.
But the one thing you know about the NFL, you never know what you're going to get. We saw that this past week where we had 4 teams come back from double-digit deficits. The most bizarre one was Arizona losing a game that I thought they should have won. Their running back, I don't know how many times we've seen that. Ball comes out before he crosses the goal line. How can that happen?
Oh, too much excitement. Yeah, it's been a wacky week, but it was nice to actually watch football and see what was happening around the league.
That's going to do it for us. For Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on Sunday at 1, KDK TV. Have a great week.